welcome back, or welcome for the first time to Welbeck Junction. End of the last episode, we finished wiring and then putting power to the fiddle yard. So this episode is going to focus on building the baseboards for the running lines that sit above the fiddle yard. I'm also planning to have them floating, so they're unobstructed view into the fiddle yard for the full length of that side, and also underlit so that the fiddle yard is illuminated when it's dark. So without further ado, let's crack on. So what you can see here is I've got a section of 25mm stainless steel box section. It's a 4.82 metre length from one end of the room all the way to the other end of the room. What that's doing is that's giving me a real solid, strong front edge. I've then faced that with some battening smooth plane timber and screwed that and adhesived it to the galvanised steel box section to give me a really strong, rigid front edge. As you can see, either end, just as the units go off to the left in view there is a piece of strut which runs from the underside of the front edge down and just sits on top of the fiddle yard. Now that's not screwed or glued into the fiddle yard. There you go, you can see it there on the right hand side as well. It's literally sat. Now that's just giving it some support at the very edge of what will be the vista into the fiddle yard. But I'm really pleased with that. It is really strong, it's really robust. Getting it into this space was a bit of a pain, but it is flush one end to the other. What I've then done is put a centre brace, as you can see to the right of the screen there. That's running from the front to the back to give it a bit of support horizontally. And underneath you can see a small white piece of threaded bar. There we go. So that's countersunk a number of tracks back into the fiddle yard and runs between two of the tracks and up and through that centre piece. So what that's doing is that's giving me some centre support, just a slight weight bearing support to the middle of the fiddle yard, allowing it to give it that visual look of floating. One baseboard built, so this is what was the driveway end of the baseboard, and you see there I've notched out the front corner and the rear corner to allow it to sit on the rear batten and then along the front edge as well. And I've cut the rear corner to allow the power feed down underneath into the fiddle yard. There you can see it is perfectly aligned with the riser coming from the down or up loop to the main tracks as well. Flipped it up, same base build structure as the main baseboards. They are slightly shallower, so they're not as deep as the main baseboards, but this isn't going to be a problem. They're still deeper than the power and the connectors, etc., that need to go in. Following exactly the same process, I've then built the middle section, notched it out front and back as before. So running from left to right, I've got two full lengths, and then that's just going to leave me the cut out section to the right around the stack, and there we go, that one's in place as well. So that is the floating fiddle yard, and as you can see there's no obstruction at the front. You've just got that one piece of threaded bar in the middle, which is almost hidden. There's a 20cm gap between the fiddle yard and the baseboards at the top, so there's plenty of space to get my arm in, and that's actually a good shot of the threaded bar. And you can see at the top I've got an adjustment bolt as well, so if I need to, I can just adjust it, but that is completely flat. Really happy, really strong. I can lean on that and it's not moving because it's anchored at both ends, and you've got the stainless steel box section behind. So the next thing I wanted to do was make sure that that fiddle yard was downlit, because I was conscious it was just going to become sort of a black cave. So two different luminances of LED strip. One is a warm white, one is a bright white. They're running sort of one after another as you go up, so it'll go warm white, bright white, bright white. That's easy to say, isn't it? That hopefully will give me a decent luminance then onto the fiddle yard without it being too bright, and create more of a natural light. Really simple LED strips with the ability to be able to cut and soldered. So what I've done there is I've cut it. You can see I've just put some flux onto the tabs, just dropping a bit of solder onto the tabs. Really simple process to power these LED strips. So both are soldered, left hand side and right hand side, and I've put some cable tidies, as I do everywhere else, onto the underside of the baseboard to keep cables nice and tidy. Then going to be a process of feeding through the power cable, bit of flux on both ends. Feed them through, and then it'll be a case of soldering onto each of the LED strips. And both the key thing here is don't put too much heat through them, because what you're going to do is just completely melt the LED strip and solder pad. So you literally just need to touch it on. And then also when you run it across to your next LED strip, it's just keep your continuity of your black and your red, so that you're not creating a short or any resistance when it comes back the other way. If you're not a fan of soldering and you're not a fan of wiring, this can be a little bit fiddly, and it can be a bit annoying. In theory, yeah, I could have probably just run the LED strip all the way along, folded it around the batten that you can see there, and gone up to the end, and it probably would have saved me, I don't know, 15, 20 cuts maybe, and then 40, 60 solders. But I wanted it to disappear up into the baseboard. I didn't want any solder dropping, any cables sort of visible, so I've taken a longer time and a more sort of painful approach to doing it. But I'm hoping when it is done, it'll look good and I'll be happy with it, rather than doing it a different way and then thinking, I wish I spent a couple more hours doing it. So just nipping the end of the sheathing off and feed that through, make sure the end's clean, and then solder that on. Having soldered them all up, we're then left with nice, clean, tidy cables running to and from in sort of an S-shaped pattern all the way along all the baseboards, wiring them into the power distribution blocks as well. And as you can see there, I've got the connector blocks which will run across to the next baseboard for both the LEDs, the track, and the auxiliary feed. So just future-proofing my wiring, so I haven't got to come back and do everything again. I think it's looking tidy, I think it's looking smart. Proof of the pudding will be when I plug it all in and hit power for the first time and hope that it illuminates. There we go. I always had faith, sort of. Fully illuminated. You can just about see the difference there in the two types of LED that I've got, the bright white and the warm white. I think it gives it a really, really clean, crisp colour. It's not at its best because I've got the dust sheets down, but I think you can get the idea that when there's something at the back running on the rear lines, you're still going to be able to see it really clearly. So I am really, really pleased with that. Really, really pleased. And a couple of running shots just before the end, and just want to thank everybody for subscribing and watching the videos. I had no idea anybody would have a great deal of interest. I sort of photographed it and videoed a bit for my own reference to start with, and that's why the sound and that's a bit patchy. So on the basis that people seem to want to watch some of it, I'm going to upgrade my microphones and I'll start doing a slightly better quality of video. But in the meantime, I just want to say a huge thank you for all your subscribes. If you haven't already, please do, and I'll try and keep the content coming as the railway moves forward and progresses. Thanks ever so much. Look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.